this is the time we usually bring in our guest co-host. And we have a very special one this week. They're all special. Everybody's special. This one is very special as well. Dinesh Shamdasani, you may know him from Valiant, but he is also launching a company called Bad Idea. It's a new company full of fresh new ideas of comic books that I'm personally super excited about. But I'm also very excited to have Dinesh on the show. Dinesh, thank you so much for joining us.
That was awesome. I just learned a bunch. I hadn't seen some of those images.
Oh, yeah. What, the Joker images?
I get all my news from you guys.
Honestly, everybody comes here each and every week. Actually, Wolf Blitzer is usually in the chat as well, trying to accumulate all kinds of news as well. He could bring to his show. But we appreciate you being here. We're glad that we kind of enlightened your day with that news. So that being said, I want to let you know you are our guest co-host. This is your show too now after the news. So we're going to take it and run with it, right?
Yes. That's it, guys. Great show. See you next week.
Everybody, thank you for joining us.
I can do whatever I want. Cool.
No, in all seriousness, we're super excited to have you here. Full disclosure, I was a huge Valiant fan back in the early 90s. It came out of nowhere for me, I guess, 2010, 2011, where you and a partner brought Valiant back from the ashes, literally from the ashes, because Acclaim just ran it into the ground in the 90s. Great characters. You guys ran a tight ship and just amazing creators, amazing content, starting off with EXO, bringing in Shadow Man and Ninjak, all the rest of the characters. So much fun, and I just want to applaud you for Valiant, and I'm super psyched to have you here for that reason. But I also just want to talk more about Bad Idea and what you have going on there, because there's a lot of people that are interested in your company, right? There's a lot of excitement about this because you have amazing talent attached to everything that Bad Idea is. So that being said, we're going to get into the interview for Bad Idea. How's that sound, everybody?
Let's do it.
Let's just do it. All right. I need to scroll down to my questions because I'm not too organized. So that's why I was kind of fleshing it out. I was buying time right there is what I was doing. But as I said, Bad Idea.
Until you told us.
What's that?
Until you told us it was very smooth.
Yeah. You ruined it for yourself there.
I have a way of doing it.
You got to train them up, man. You got to train them up, Chris. What's going on?
Anyway, so Bad Idea, you guys have a collection of, talented group of creators and comic industry vets. How did Bad Idea start? How did this all get going?
Honestly, this is a tough question because everyone has a different answer, and that's kind of how we built it to be. I can tell you my version of it. I was at Valiant with a bunch of people that I really, really enjoyed working with, and we had success. And leaving was not entirely my choice, although it ended up being quite a good thing for me. And I just missed working with my friends, and I missed working in comics. I missed making comic books. So I was just looking for an excuse to figure out how to get back in. And we were very lucky at Valiant. We built these books. We didn't have to build the house. That's the thing. The characters existed, the structure of the universe existed. We get to expand that. Eventually we got to add new characters to it. We were very lucky people liked what we did, but we never really checked that one box. I felt like we checked a lot of boxes, but creating something from scratch, whole cloth, felt like a challenge. And then from there, it was like, well, how else can we challenge ourselves? How about every stupid idea we can think of? No diamond, self-distributing, no variants, no digital, no trades. Hence the name of the company. It's just a bunch of bad ideas.
And by the way, that's their tag down below at Bad Idea. Hello. Be sure to follow them. And by the way, Macedonian Comics and music, everything about the title sounds like a great idea. So, as you just alluded to, you guys are approaching this in a bit of an unconventional way in terms of the industry. Yeah. Direct distribution. That's an insane thought, but not. It shouldn't really be, right? But what for you? Like, what is the most important thing to you that's unconventional to build this company?
I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to examine everything that has been taken for granted. Because we're uniquely qualified, we're lucky enough to have had the experience of working in publishing at a high level for a decade. And so we got to see what all the levers do. Essentially, we got to push all the buttons on the control panel, and we got to see what they all do. And some of them, you don't really need, we think. And we're trying to, at least for ourselves, as an indie publisher, small publisher, build a way that we can funnel some of those resources into the books. We're trying to ask ourselves, do we really need X? Do we really need Y? And so hopefully the one thing people take away from us, if there's one thing, is just that we're very difficult to say, I know what they're going to do next. I know what they mean. We're just always going to come up with some stupid thing because we'll get bored, or we'll have a better idea, or we'll realize the bad idea actually is a bad idea and try and fix it.
Hey, but that's the fun in starting a company like this. But
yeah,
that being said, you touched upon this, but from an outsider's perspective, it would seem you're kind of limiting yourselves in a way with these bad ideas, which could be good ideas. It's to grow your audience or be in other shops. How have you
we're limiting our audience, but I think one of the things people struggle to understand about what we're doing is basically every publisher, including Valiant, when we were running it, is trying to be Marvel or a baby version of Marvel. That's not the only thing you can do. If you decide that you want to do something else, for instance, if you decide you just want to make really, really good comic books, you come up with a couple of decisions. You think to yourself, well, I've got to make less, because that's how you make quality, because I've got to give myself more time. Then you think to yourself, okay, well, if I don't want to build an empire, do I need the book market? Therefore, maybe you don't really need trades. Yes, there's a whole contingent of people that trade way, but if the books are good enough, you could probably convince the majority of them to come to the single issues. Then you'll start thinking, well, how many do I really need? Do I need everybody? Do you have to be a company that is making books that everybody likes, or can you be a company that's making books that some people really love? And so that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, that's
Dinesh, I want to jump in here. I really like that, because I'm sitting here questioning, and I come from a business background, and I understand, a niche market, and I understand sometimes what it takes to really get into a niche market where essentially it could seem like you're alienating everything else that's out there. But I also know on the flip side of that, there's the idea of trying to, get inserted into a large market that has such competition already out there, to where penetration is really hard to do. So do you feel that that's kind of a part of this formula, where you're looking at the fact that, like you just said, maybe it speaks to what you just said, we could utilize all these variables and get a good amount of people to like it, but let's take all of our resources, streamline it to one area, and see if we get enough people to love it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's really, we can't fight Marvel and DC. That's the mistake that a lot of publishers, I think, make. And at Valiant, because we didn't build the house, the best thing that we had at Valiant was we had Valiant, right? We had these amazing characters people loved. The worst thing that we had at Valiant is we had Valiant. It set a path for us. We had to try and become a big 2, big 3 publisher, because that's what Valiant was built to do. Here, we don't have to give ourselves that burden. And so we can build ourselves to be niche in the way that, like, Mondo is niche in the poster world, or Pixar, or actually, frankly, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is niche. They don't produce more than 2 movies a year. They've become this monster, and I guess that's the biggest version of what Bad Idea could be. I don't think that'll be it. The other thing that we try to do is be honest with ourselves. At Valiant, try as we might, for a decade, producing books that were the best reviewed books in the business, there were just certain comic book fans, rabid comic book fans, that were never going to come along. Bloodshot was never going to be for them. It didn't matter that we put Jeff Lemire on the book, or Luis LaRosa on the interior art, or we put a metal cover on, or we got the best reviews. They just loved Iron Man. They didn't care about anything else. And so here we're just trying to say to ourselves, why are we putting the burden on ourselves to convince these people? And why are we annoying them and keep saying to them, no, you'll like Bloodshot? And they're like, I'm cool, man. I got my Iron Man. I got my Thor. I don't need anything else. That's kind of how we're approaching it.
That's interesting. That's definitely interesting. And another thing that you've done to kind of initially sneak into the market is the hero trade that created a ton of buzz. Can you tell us like where that idea came from and how you literally
sure
stuck it in there?
So we're only in select stores, and that actually is exactly what we were just talking about. There are stores at Valiant, I would say about 300 stores sold 80% of the Valiant books. And that's about the same 300 stores that sell 80%, in my opinion, of Dark Horse, of Image, basically anyone that isn't Marvel and DC. So we said to ourselves, let's not worry about the other stores, the other 1,000+ stores. Let's just worry about these stores. Let's have them be our partners. So we put together a company that has select stores, and we said to people, if you want to be partners, just let us know. We anticipated about 25 stores would be crazy enough to come on board. The nice thing about Bad Idea is we keep having these champagne problems. Immediately we were oversubscribed. We up to 50 to 100. At launch now, we're going to be at 300 locations. So at the time of the hero trade, we were at 154 stores. We had to push the launch because of COVID. And we were lucky we hadn't launched it. If we'd launched it, I think we'd probably be out of business right now. But we were a month away, so we were able to push. We pushed to this March, this next month, which is when we're going to launch now. We knew the stores were hurting though. And so actually a retailer, store owner, Mark Nathan from Cards, Comics, and Collectibles, or it might be Collectibles, Comics, and Cards. I can never, or maybe it's some combination of those.
Right.
He's been in business for 30 years, super, super smart guy. He's always had great advice for publishers. He said to us, hey, people kind of anticipate your books. If you were to take one of those stories you had and do an ash can and send it to retailers, we could sell them. We could make some money, maybe $30, $40. We had a short story because every bad idea book, another bad idea, every bad idea book is essentially oversized. So we're not really adhering to the 22 page count per issue, which is kind of letting our imaginations run wild. So Tankers, for instance, our second launch is 32 pages each issue at a minimum. And then every bad idea book we do has 8 pages of backups, like little backups, completely different stories, experimental things. And we had built one that we really loved called The Hero Trade. Matt Kent wrote it, David Lapham drew it. We thought, why don't we just print this thing? Then we had a really devious idea, which is stores, like publishers, get sent amateur books all the time. They look like they're printed at Kinko's. They're mostly not very good, but occasionally you find something in there. And so we went to our printer and said, can you do uncoded, like kind of garbage stock? And can we make this look like it was printed at like a backyard Kinko's? And we sent it to one per store with a letter. The letter said, love your store, which technically is true. This is our first book, also technically true. We'd love if you could sell it. And if you want more, just email theherotrade@gmail.com, $3 a piece. But we did not tell them it came from Bad Idea. We did not tell them Matt Kint or David Lapham. We waited 3 weeks for the order deadline to pass, and then we announced on Twitter that this is a Bad Idea book. And it really caught us by surprise. At first, people didn't believe us. They said, the first Bad Idea book's out in stores. What are you talking about? And we said, yeah, it's called The Hero Trade. People said, what are you talking about? We said, here's a picture. And fans still said, what are you talking about? And the store owner goes, oh, these a-holes. Can I swear? I don't know if I can swear.
You can swear. You can definitely
Yeah,
swear.
right. Sorry about it. These a-holes, what have they done? And they started looking for the books. Where's this book? Did I throw it out? Did I put it in the dollar bin? And it was just a fervor. I had a store call me and tell me he had to turn the phone off. He's getting so many calls. We had fights break out in stores, people lining up during COVID. It was bad. And this book now is like this back issue monster.
The fair market value is insane.
Yeah, it's like 4 figures if you can find a copy.
I love how that all just ended up with you just saying it's bad. And it's just, you really got something working here. Hey, Jeff, does this go to this Costanza Effect here too? Because
you're absolutely right. I mean, if you think about it, you're doing kind of everything opposite of what you did at Valiant in a way. So I kudos to you. That's a good call out, Chris. And by the way, if you guys have any questions for Dinesh, please put them in the comments, because we'll give you an opportunity to talk to him about Bad Idea, Valiant, Bloodshot the movie. He was the producer on Bloodshot the movie. But continuing on with Bad Idea, as you said, you made it very clear there's not going to be any variants to your books. There won't be, it won't be available on digital, trade paperback. There'll be only 2 types of prints, first and not first. You kind of touched upon this earlier too, but I kind of want to clarify what have you seen in the market that steered you towards these decisions?
I have no one to blame but us. When we built Divinity, we built this book at Valiant called Divinity, and Matt Kint wrote it as well. Trevor Hessline drew it, and it became this kind of it was a brand new character, our first brand new character in its own book. It became a bit of a monster, it became a bit of a behemoth, and we kept finding that we were running out of copies. So we would go to a second print, went to a third print, went to a fourth print, and we started to watch people notice, people that weren't paying attention to Valiant. Oh, they went to a fourth print. This must be something good. I'll check it out. And we started to lean into that fifth print. We start to realize that, Marvel books haven't gone to fifth print. At that point, a Marvel book had not been to fifth printing, Marvel DC, in like a decade. So when we went to our fifth print, we were like, wow, this is really something people are paying attention to, but it just comes down to the fact that we so mismanaged our numbers. And since then, I think we're partly to blame. Marvel's now done it 100 times. I think this little book that took off Boom, Image, Dark Horse, IDW, everyone's done it, to the point where these printings become variants. And that defeats the purpose of bringing readers in, finding a cheap, not back issue version of a story for readers to jump into. And without doing variants, we're very conscious of the fact that people will be looking for a collectible nature to our book. So we're trying to stamp that out everywhere we can. We realize that there's no legal reason you have to put second, third, fourth printing. We figured out that if you print the exact same book and don't mark it differently, how's anyone going to know? If we print our not first printing, which we've just done on ENIAC 1 today, or we print one 2 years from now, another batch, there's no way to tell. And so we're trying to stamp out that, okay, the fourth printing is the lowest printed version. That's the one we're going to go after. Because unavoidably, the not first printing will end up being the one with the most copies. So there won't be a raise in prices that way. And hopefully people will be able to read our stories. And even the Hero Trade, we're going to reprint that in ENIAC 3. Our whole thing is, if you want to read the stories, you got to do a little work to find a store that's in the network, but we're going to make it easy for you to read them.
And, going what you said, you got ENIAC right here. As you guys put out here, the first printing, not first printing, I guess there's a slight difference.
There's a color variation because we want to make sure that the store owners know which one's the first and second, because there may be, especially with the Hero Trade doing what it's done, there may be a version reality where the first printings become something like $5, $10 books. And the last thing we want to do is have retailers that have backed us not be able to make the money that they need to make on that first printing. But every second, third, the traditional second, third, fourth, fifth printings will all be not first printings, all that same color. There'll be nothing different inside, nothing different anywhere. I
think I speak for a lot of collectors. There is that kind of variant second printing. There's that fatigue there, and this is kind of refreshing in a way, taking it back. So I kind of like that, especially it kind of harkens to the 90s where you had a different, like, let's just say off the top of my head, New Mutants 87, where you had the gold variant. Yeah, the gold. That's right. I hadn't thought about that. That's true. Yeah, so that's a really good point. Kind of taking it back in a way, and that's refreshing, going old school.
Yeah, I like that too, and I want to add to it. This doesn't take away from anything that's already on the market. It simply adds. Yeah. And that's how I would see it as a collector. And I could be a collector, and I always talk about this. I think we tend to sum up collectors into boxes, but I'm a little of everything. And I'm not a big fan of collecting variants, but I love the variant market. I love that there's a market for it. I love that it's a part of the industry right now that's keeping it healthy. But as a collector, I can enjoy the variant market for what's there, and then I could see this as its own thing and enjoy both at the same time. That's the goal. And look, everything in the first print will be in the not first printing. There will be a couple people and we've seen it already with the allocation of ENIAC 1, people disappointed I may not get a first printing. We haven't announced it yet, but we did put a little something in the not first printing that isn't in the first printing. So if you get a not first printing, you get everything in the first printing, and then a little something.
Is that an exclusive here? Because we'll take that.
That is an exclusive here. Yeah.
We got another exclusive. You're the second exclusive we've ever gotten. We love that. That is fantastic to hear right there. And I'm going to touch upon this because there have been a lot of people flat out irritated. I've seen in message boards about Bad Idea who are super excited about it, but feel like it's so hard they feel like they have to jump through hoops to give you money to buy their comic book, which is, in a way, it's fair. You have limited shops. You have to sign up and tell the shop that you signed up or something like that, from what I understand. So, and now there's this recent situation that's come up where, I think you touched upon that. You sent out letters that you'll need to cut back on the ENIAC first print. A lot of shops and fans are very frustrated with this decision. Shops can't deliver their customers. Customers are worried they won't get their first prints. There's going to be a lot to do for. I touched upon this. I'm sorry. I'm just reading this up. What can you say to everybody as to the reason why you had to cut back? And I think you've already told us how you're alleviating any concerns by exclusively here saying that there will be a little something extra in the not first print version of ENIAC #1. It actually is very similar to what happened in Divinity. Our goal is to try and reduce speculation. When you say select stores, when you say no variants, when you say no trades, no digital, speculate, especially the hardcore speculators, their ears perk up. And so we have to do what we can
to try and mitigate that. Now, they're an important piece of the industry, and we don't want to ignore them, but we don't want to feed them. We don't want to play to them. One of the things that we've done with the stores is we've said to them, if you want to sign up, at least 6 of these rules is whatever your orders on issue 1 are, you have to match that 2, 3, and 4, or however many issues there are. So you're really ordering everything at once. Our goal there is to try and get them not to up their orders for everything, but actually take a look at what they think they'll sell on issue 4, say it's a 4-issue series like ENIAC, and then reduce their orders on 1, because we're going to keep the not first prints perennial. We're going to keep them in print, and we want people to be focused on reading, not collecting. So what happened with ENIAC 1 is, because we self-distribute, because we're not through Diamond, because we take our own orders, we have our own order site, we can't do what Diamond does over 2 days. We do what anyone else does. It takes often a week, if not longer, to ship books. So we don't have the benefit of being able to print after we get our orders. This is part of the downside of doing what we're doing as an independent publisher. We took our very, very, very best guess of readers and then built the highest projection we thought was feasible for a new company without Wolverine and Batman, with no known characters. And we have known creators, but it's a new publisher. The numbers that came in far, far, far exceeded that in terms of orders. I suspect part of it is the incredible interest in hero trade. What we were able to do is we had to cut the first print orders. We had to allocate by 50%, which is a massive allocation. I can't think of one that's ever happened to be this big. Even the last Ronin that recently came out, and that was a bit of an equal debacle. I think that was a 29% allocation. So we're at 50%. But we were able to get not first printings at the same time. The reason we're able to do that is when people see the books, I think they'll understand. Again, as a new publisher, hugely important to get people to buy the books, because if they read them, I think they'll fall in love with them. The best thing you can do for anyone that's been in sales is get someone to touch the product. If they touch it, they're almost certainly going to buy it. And so we built what'll look, I think, like the best covers in the business. We've got, for printer terminology here, 12-point double laminate matte cardstock with spot gloss cover, UV spot gloss covers, which means, I'll translate what that means. If you take a look at a Marvel trade paperback, that thick cover, we're one step above that. So Marvel doesn't even use this cardstock. It's that strong. On top of that, we laminate it. So if you were to rip the cover, you couldn't, because there's a thin layer of film on top of it. It gives it like a really, really expensive, luxurious feel. On top of that, we're matting both sides, so it'll have a really nice a look for the blacks. And then we're doing a spot gloss, so there'll be little areas that will really pop. That takes about 2 weeks. The drying is especially important. The laminate, when you put that film on, it has to dry for a week. That eats up a lot of production time. Now, we printed the covers 2 weeks early than the guts. So we've got our first print covers and our not first print covers. They're done. When we ran into this allocation problem, we couldn't print more first print covers with enough time, but we had our not first print covers. And we could easily print more guts, sorry, I should explain what those are. Guts are the interiors. So we can print more interiors. They're just printed on a regular 70-pound super white paper. Those are quicker to print. So we're able to print those, bind them, and get enough copies so that every store will be able to fulfill their orders with either first or not first prints. We've also been able to call almost every store, and we've managed to be able to get almost every store enough first print copies so that every pre-order will get a first print copy. So we've taken care of them on those two fronts. But yeah, it is a little bit of a steep learning curve for us. We've put procedures in place now to make sure that doesn't happen, or try to make sure that doesn't happen again anyway.
That's interesting. This is a question here that again, about what is happening. How does the shop justify buying the same amount of number one for issue number 2 if they see their numbers drop on pre-orders? Isn't this forcing their hand and potentially ordering more copies they can't sell?
That's the way that the stores have been looking at it, that frankly is a little bit concerning, and why there is a silver lining to the allocation, because the orders came in much higher than, frankly, I think there are readers, much higher than I think there are readers. Our hope is that stores look at, because it's a pretty standard attrition rate. Whatever happens to number 1, let's just say round numbers, 70% of the readers are there for 2, 50% of the readers are there from 1 for 3, and then usually pretty stable from 4 onwards, but let's say it's 40%. What we'd like them to do is look at that number they think is number 1, look at number 4 and say we're going to sell 40%, and then order that number 4 number across the board. And if they're missing here, reorder not first printings, because we'll have those in print and we can get those to you quickly. So we'd like them to actually reduce their orders. The last thing we want, what kills a new company, is books left on shelves. Yeah. We need, as crazy as it sounds, we need every store to be sold out of ENIAC 1. If they're not sold out, they're going to look at that shelf. They're going to order less of tankers. They're going to order less of the lot. And in a year, they're not going to be ordering anything. It's very much what happens in the sneaker culture world or designer toys or Mondo. We unfortunately need that to build slowly because we don't have Batman or Wolverine to help us.
I want to add here. I'm really taking this all in, and the way you broke that down, and I'm hearing you talk about the focus of limiting, just this overdrive of speculation, increasing the desire for readers to get involved. But I'm looking at the way that this is working out, and I think that this is a very balanced approach that could essentially quench the needs of readers and those who still want to find the collectability within the books. I mean, that kind of,
that's what we're trying. Yeah.
Back end to front approach really does that. And I think it does it in a way where it doesn't convolute the process. It's very easy because one thing I hear so often is, and I usually say it's the people that missed out on the FOMO, and they act like they don't care about values of books. They act like they don't speculate, but we know they do. But then they say this: they say, "I just wanted the book to read. Can I get it for a cheap price now?" And they're mad that a book that just came out last week is now selling for $25.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think this kind of alleviates anybody to be able to kind of have that defense, because you almost know what you're going to be able to get. You have a better possibility of being able to get what you want to get, regardless if you're a reader or regardless if you want to buy a copy or maybe an extra copy and say, I know that not first print is going to be there to quench the supply of all the readers.
Yeah.
So I'm going to hold on to an issue of the first print and still be confident that there is at least potential that there can be value and collectability in it.
100%. And frankly, I think the black cover, the not first printing, looks a little better. So I think there's value there, or at least there's benefit there. But what we're running into, and it's interesting because we're trying to keep it very simple, but it is new, right? And so no matter how simple you keep it, if it's new, it's new. You got to learn something new. But there's not a lot of first, second, third, fourth, fifth printings. There's not a lot of 1 in 50 variant, ratio variant, store exclusives. There's none of that. It's just, here's the first print, here's enough first print. That's it for every single book. It's very simple. But what we're seeing is, and when we announce to the stores, we're going to add this rule where whatever you order on number 1, you got to order for the rest of the series, no matter how many issues it is. They all said this in one-on-one conversations. Man, people are really going to cut their orders. But not me, because they're all going to cut their orders. So I'm going to be the one with the books for when it's sold out. They're going to call me and want to self-distribute. It's like, no, you should cut. And then they all say this, and then all the orders go up. So it is the Costanza thing. We're trying to say, don't do this. And we're just actually encouraging them to do the thing that at Valiant would have been great. I wish I'd done this at Valiant. I would have done it at Valiant, where I wanted to sell more books. Here I'm trying to keep it slow and steady.
Slow and steady sounds like the reasonable approach. Now, you do have another kind of, a lot of people are kind of like mad about these rules, right? These rules that you put in place. And another one is 1 copy per customer, right? Now that's easy to kind of do online. How do you expect stores to handle that? I mean, like, how do you expect stores to handle something like that? Because you know the people that walk into a store,
absolutely,
5 copies of 1 issue, screw everybody else behind me, I don't care, and boom, they're out the door. So how do you kind of, and not, you can't enforce it, but how do you handle that?
Yeah, well, we can enforce it. There's no bulletproof way to make sure every single copy that's sold is 1 per customer. What we can do, and what we hope to do, stores will have different rules. If you come today and buy a copy, and you come tomorrow and there's still left, can you buy another copy? Some stores will say yes. That if you did the drive, you took a second day, okay, we're cool with that. If you come in and you bring your brother and you get a copy each, and you're both readers and the store owner knows you and he's okay to sell you 2 copies, but actually your brother's just gonna give it to you, you know what, we can't really police that. But what we're gonna police is if someone tweets a receipt and some dude's got 5 copies and it was 1 guy buying them, that store's out of the program.
Wow.
And that's something that we've told them. Any of the rules, they can't sell the books for more than cover price for 30 days. They've got to order consistently across the board. We haven't revealed all the rules because it's not really fair. Some of the rules are, for the retailers to talk about, but these three we've talked about because they're very, I think, beneficial to readers, at least.
Yeah,
I have to bring.
Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
Okay, I was just gonna, in kind of shifting gears here a little bit because I'm just, I really want to bring up the digital and the trade decisions here, because first off, you have these doomsdayers that think that floppy paper comics are going away. I personally don't feel that's going to happen anytime soon. Obviously, there's a market for digital these days. And I know that the trade paperback graphic novel market is growing. So how do you now bringing in, there's a focus on readers here, but when we live in an age where there's a lot of even like new readers or young readers coming in and simply just going the digital route or going the, graphic novel route, how do you feel that you can pull those customers in? Because I think from everything we've talked about so far, I think there is an amazing positive perception, and I'm speaking as a collector, to this, everything that you brought up about the single floppy issue and how you guys are doing that. So I think that really can attract a lot of these collectors, whether they've been in the hobby for a year, 20 or 30 years, but maybe they know what they want and they know how to get it, and this is gonna really speak to them. What about those hobbyists that are coming into the hobby saying, "Oh, well, I don't care about buying single issues. I'm all good with reading the graphic novel. I'm all good with downloading the Marvel Unlimiteds or the Comixologies and reading it digital." Do you want to bring those type of consumers into the market as well?
That's an interesting way to phrase that question. It's going to get me in trouble. Of course I care that those readers come. I just don't care enough. And that's where I get in trouble, because, and I'll tell you why, because we've tried to be very strategic about this and methodological. There's two sides. Let's talk about digital first. There's two sides to this coin. Side one, there is an approach at Bad Idea that we want to be very disciplined about keeping, and that is physical comic books in comic book stores. Like you, we believe that monthly comics, physical floppies, will exist. It's the only ink on paper business in the world that it's growing. Comic stores are an incredible, maybe my favorite thing about comics is comic book stores. And there's a throwback idea of anticipation, having to drive somewhere and not being able to find it, a little bit of the treasure hunt. Where am I going to get a copy? Finally being able to get that copy, having to go home, read it. It's taken you weeks to find this copy. That's a whole half of the experience that is disappearing. And I don't sound like an old fogey, because I think there's a modernization to that experience, disappearing because of digital, right? You can get anything you want. Any movie, for instance, is available to you like that. There's no version of, oh man, this Beastmaster, I love Beastmaster. You got to watch Beastmaster. I can't find anywhere. I got to find an old tape, and I got to find an old tape player, and I got to watch the VHS. There's no version of that in comics anymore. So we're trying a little bit to bring that back. The other part about digital, the other side of the coin, is this. At Valiant, we found digital not as big as you'd think. And the majority of digital readers, samplers. So what they do is they wake up in the morning, they pull out their iPad, they buy the issue, they go, this is pretty good. They drive to the store, they buy it again physically. They don't buy next issues digitally, they just move to physical copies. If they don't like the book, they've bought one issue digitally, they haven't had to drive to the store, they were okay. Digital is only 5% of sales. I didn't say that. I don't want to get in trouble with anyone that runs a digital company. It is not far off. It's not expensive to build digital, but it's also not worth the time. I'd rather spend that time for myself, for my team, reading the scripts, giving notes, looking at the art, building the marketing plans, talking one-on-one with our select retailers. Okay, let's talk trades. Trades are great. Trades are a very, very big market, especially the mass market. There is no version of Bad Idea being in the mass market, because we don't have the size or the awareness, for 5 to 10 years. So not going to chase that. That's a waste of money. The comic book stores, physical copies in comic book stores, yes, that's a potentially really viable revenue for us in a viable marketplace, viable readership. The reason that we've ultimately decided not to go that route is because, unlike single issues, I don't like. I'm just reading the comments.
Sorry, I'm going to stop distracting you.
No, do it. I love it. Unlike, it's also very fancy. You guys are very fancy here. It's like a top-notch show. It's great. It looks great.
Well, it's basically StreamYard. Don't give us too much credit. Appreciate it, though. We appreciate it.
Take the compliment. So the reason we're not going there is for one very simple reason: inventory cost. And this is a little businessy, but inventory cost is very, very hard to keep on the books. Even a company like Valiant publishing 7 to 10 books a month, in a matter of 2-3 years, I was sitting on 7 figures of inventory costs. And what I mean by that is this: when you sell single issues to retail stores, to comic book stores, you sell it in a non-returnable basis, meaning whatever they buy, they have to keep. When you sell trades, they can be returned. You've returned 30, 40%, sometimes more, which means that books come back to you. They don't always come back to you in a way that you can resell, but if they do, you've got to warehouse them. Also, you often get your numbers in publishing before you have to print. So normally, we don't really have that here. We're trying to figure out how to do that with the self-distribution. But at Valiant, for instance, I would know how many copies are ordered, and I can print that many. I don't have to warehouse that many. With trades, you're printing a big bunch, and then you're probably getting this many orders. And then over time, you're selling a lot, but you're warehousing this for years. I remember looking at the books thinking, I've got millions of dollars here sitting in trade paperbacks and hardcovers of books, and they're selling every month. They're trickling out. I could take that money and I could build better books, bigger creators, better artists. I could hire more staff. The books would be better. So what we're trying to do here is take that money and say, we're sorry to the trade waiters. We hope we're good enough that you make the jump to the Rubicon. And just yesterday, I did an interview with someone on a show that only talks about trades. I didn't know this before I went on there. And he was like, by the way, we only talk about trades, but all of our viewers are talking about Bad Idea. And you've got a lot of them for the first time in a long time going to single issues, which is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
I have to bring up, Joe, and this is my final thing I'll say. I'll let you come in here. I love hearing this because, I really went into this interview today with such a very balanced approach because I'm so intrigued by what you guys are doing. But there's always two sides of the coin to look at things. And I think the way that you're explaining all this is so right down the middle. And I think what you guys are doing, I think that the vision is there. But it's funny because I as you're talking, I think of Chipotle. And I know it has nothing to do with comic books, but Chipotle, arguably, who, for those that want a little bit of history lesson about Chipotle, they got big in the early 90s and basically mimicked a taqueria. You go into a taqueria, you get a burrito, you can get tacos, and it was very simple. When you have, like McDonald's or Taco Bell's, where you got, the big menu, the big buck menu and the dollar menu and all these different crazy things. And you go into Chipotle and you got 4 things that you can order.
Yeah.
And that's it. And look, I don't eat out much, but I love Chipotle. I eat Chipotle like once a week. And it doesn't matter that there's only 4 things that you can eat. I never get tired of it. So you have McDonald's and Taco Bell limiting their orders. They cut out, Taco Bell cut out my favorite double-decker taco. I'm so mad. I'm never eating there again.
Too, guys, the Mexican pizza.
The Mexican pizza. I mean, what are they doing? But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. They're understanding that it's not always cost effective to say, look, we do everything, and that means we're going to be successful. No, like you've said, I think you said it a couple times, maybe not in these exact words, but you're focused on doing that one thing that you guys don't only do good, but you're going to do great.
Yeah.
And hopefully it's better than what everyone else is doing.
That's the plan. That's the plan. And look, it's fascinating you say Chipotle, because Adam Freeman, our head of sales, talks about Chipotle and that exact thing all the time. Because if you can limit the menu, you can then take the money you're spending on all the stuff that isn't selling as well and get better ingredients, and then the taste is better and people don't get bored because it's good. But I should also mention, the other thing about Bad Idea that's interesting is you're hearing all this stuff from me, but it really is the team. And it's a small team, and it's very much a team that came from Valiant. This is right now the executive staff at Bad Idea. It's myself, it's my co-CEO and co-CCO, Warren Simons, head of sales, just talked about, Adam Freeman, director of marketing, Josh Johns, publisher, Hunter Goranson, and our managing editor, Carl Bowles, and that's it. It's a 6-person team. And at Valiant, we had 50 plus people. But here, we don't have quite as much manpower, so we're having to work harder. But we're finding us to be a little bit like a speedboat. We're able to make decisions and turn very, very quickly. And I think that's where some of this stuff is possible for us, where it's a little difficult for other publishers to see it or try it.
A lot of people to answer to and a lot of cooks in the
kitchen. A lot of
kitchen.
Internal politics, a lot of communication. It's just slower.
Bureaucracy.
Yeah.
I actually have one more question, Chris. You may have another, but and then we have a really good question by the bearded one in the comments that I'm going to get to in a hot second. But in terms of distribution, my personal experience in talking to comic book shop owners during this pandemic, how DC decided to partner up and have another distribution arm. They completely went away from Diamond. It kind of made things challenging for comic book shop owners having to go to two separate entities to bring in those types of books. They also, I guess they accrued more shipping costs because of that. I'm not sure how many other companies are doing what you're doing, if at all, but what are you doing to make things easy for comic book shop owners, knowing that they'll have to go to another source, to distribute, to get your comic books? How are you making it easier for them?
It's a great question. So let me talk about Adam again. Adam Freeman is our head of sales. Now, he was a retailer himself. He owned a store, Brave New World Comics, in Santa Clara, California. He won the Eisner for Best Retailer, which is an Eisner they don't give out every year, only when it's deserved. So he knows that world very, very, very well. And he's been on us to make sure that we're honest about exactly that. And one of the things that is concerning to us is, are we worth this extra time? The stores get this big book previews. They've got to know all these different SKUs. They've got to read all the comics that come in. They've got to order 4 months in advance. Why are we worth the time? And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to take a little bit of like the Jerry Maguire approach. If we have less stores, we can talk to all the stores. And so Adam is literally texting, emailing. I mean, he works like 18-hour days, and he's in touch with every single store. He could recite for you right now every store's order on ENIAC #1. We're going to see how long this goes before he has a scanner-style brain melt. But we're trying to give a little bit more of that boutique custom approach in terms of the stores. We took the allocation very much to heart. We love Diamond. Chris Powell and Tim Lanahan at Diamond are just friends of everyone in the company, actually, especially Adam and Hunter. And they've been really helpful, frankly, in building our plan. It's not a divisive relationship. They gave us a couple of suggestions when we first told them that have been really helpful. And we're trying to figure out how to fulfill the books in a way that reduces that kind of problem. We have some solutions now that we haven't 100% locked in yet. We will by the time ENIAC 1 needs to get out shipping next week. But we're going to try and make it very, very easy for the stores, because we're going to make it so that they don't have to do what DC did. They don't have to do what they have to do with DC, which is deal with 2 days worth of unpacking, two boxes worth of unpacking. We're going to try and make it so that they can do our books in the way they would have had we gone through Diamond. If that makes sense, without giving away too much.
No, it does make sense. It does. It's just, again, the frustration was with comic book shop. Not, there's no consistencies, obviously, when you're launching something like DC did. There's going to be some snafus, right? There's going to be some issues that you have. So obviously, combine that with the pandemic, less people coming into a store, if at all. There were many frustrations that were there. Again, I hope that it's an easy click and they get your books kind of a situation for that. You know what I mean?
Terms are, without getting too much in the weeds, all the terms are much more beneficial. So everything that we've talked about so far are changes that the stores and customers have to deal with. Things we haven't talked about, we've talked about a little bit on the reader side, because there's more pages, there's better stories, there's backup stories, there's better paper, etc. Same for the stores. Their net terms are better. The shipping terms are better. They'll come in with more time. We'll personalize the ordering so they don't have to fill out a form, and that's the only way they can order. They can text us, WhatsApp us, slip into our DMs. They can Facebook message us. They can email us. They can do whatever they need to order, whatever's customized for them. They can pay in whatever way they want to pay. So we're trying to make all that super easy, because we can't make everything a pain in the ass. And so far it's gone great. So far, they've ordered too many, so maybe we should make it a little bit more difficult.
No, I think you're doing a good job, distinguishing yourself from other comic companies. But Chris, if it's okay, I'm going to go to a bearded one question, because this is now we're getting to the content, the nitty gritty, the heart of these books. They look excellent. From what I've read, they're excellent. I'm going to throw it out there. I'm super excited for Tankers, which comes out in April.
Yeah, April.
EDX March.
Yeah.
But this is a good question from the bearded one here. He's a regular. There's a nope, that's not the one. We're not talking about your rib joint there. Sorry, guys. That's my bad.
What was the rib joint called?
Hold on. All right, we'll hit the rib joint. There's a famous rib joint in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. You either order. He's talking about the whole.
I need the name. I need the name. I want to get those ribs.
You can either order whole, half, rack ribs, and you only have 2 or 3 choices of size packed out all the time, kind of like the Chipotle.
Simplicity is important.
I'm getting hungry.
Okay, here we go. The bearded one. I really got behind Valiant when Dinesh was there. When he left, I was crushed. Is this company he's running producing a shared universe? Is this more separate creator-owned like Image?
Let me first apologize. Dude, I am sorry, man. I feel it was my job to protect that thing and keep it running at that level. And I don't look at Valiant's success. Objectively, it is success. It produced books for a long time. It survived longer than anyone thought it would. Best reviewed publisher, huge acquisition, lots of money changing hands. I mean, I don't think those characters, as much as I love them, can survive many more years of what's happening to them right now. And that was always my goal, to make them like Marvel. Publish 10 years of bad Marvel books. People still love those characters. It survives. In terms of a shared universe, that is a question I can get in trouble answering. Everyone that works at Bad Idea has worked in a shared universe. We're trying real hard not to build a shared universe, but I don't know that we can help ourselves. Certainly, we are keeping the doors open. But I don't want to spoil any surprises, because as much like your trade, we've lied about a lot of things. I mean, some of the stuff you've seen for ENIAC, one of the things, my favorite things about what's going to happen the next month is we've been marketing ENIAC. We've been showing pages off. We've been telling you what's in the book. We've been saying what's in the back, all this stuff. And they're going to get the book and they're going to be like, what is this? Where's that other thing? What's going on here? We're going to do a lot of that. So I'm very excited for people to be like, I can't believe they spent all that money to trick us. Why would they do that?
It's keeping the fans on their toes, and hopefully they'll appreciate something like that. And a lot of times it usually ends up working out well for people when there's a what the fuck kind of so
just blame it on Tom Holland.
Blame it on Tom Holland. Everything, it's very much like that, actually. Everything that we're showing will eventually come out. It's just about, will you get it when we say you're going to get it, and will you get it in the way we're saying you're going to get it. And hopefully people learn not to look away. That's our goal. We're too small to afford people looking away, so we got to keep them guessing.
There are a lot of other good questions here. Chris, do you have any other questions you want to add?
No, I just want to say I'm really again, and I say this as a collector, I'm very intrigued. I'm going to be I'm a fan right now. Like I'm diving into this, excited for this.
Convert another one. That's awesome.
Yeah, as a businessman, I really enjoyed everything that you've said here tonight.
Thanks.
It really, I've talked to, I've had a few different, independent publishers that are trying to do their own thing on the show. I've done a lot of reviews of books, and, there's, as much as I try to be humble and try to pick out positive things that I can see they're doing, ultimately, if I got to sit and hypothesize what I think is going to be their future, it's like it's just that penetration into this market is so hard.
Yeah.
I everything that you said and how you stated today gives me actual hope. Not, and again, I'm speaking as a business, not even as a collector. Like, I see every variable that you talked about being so strategic and so at least it may not work out perfectly, and you're going to learn, you're going to hit bumps in the road and all that. But I think you have a perfect idea of what you guys are doing, and I think that is what matters right now.
Yeah, we're trying to boil it down to the approach, and I have an I sound good now because I have an amazing team. Again, Warren, Adam, Hunter, Josh, Carl, amazing team, and then the creators. They're so invested, man. Everything we're doing, they're giving us advice. This is what we're seeing on the retail side over here. They're not just staying, and no one's staying in a lane. Everyone's treating this like it's their own.
I mean, that being that passionate about something is the base, the heart and soul of a company like that. And, you know, I'm personally rooting for you. Again, you know, I want to touch upon Sean Miller.
Yeah.
We did touch upon this, Sean. I may have missed this, but how do you feel about variants in regards to store variants, and how do you plan to address stores trying to produce exclusive store variants? I mean, there won't be any, but I'll let Dinesh.
Yeah, there's no variants. There's no store variants either. Store variants are fascinating. They've become such a big component. I mean, you just saw Berserker.
Yeah.
Rightly sell 615,000. I mean, huge book. It looks awesome, and a lot of that is store variants, and it's a great thing for stores. It allows them to be able to promote their store and the book in a way that's exclusive to their base, their consumer base. But what we're saying to ourselves is that takes a lot of work. Selling 600,000 copies, I mean, I can only imagine 100 store variants. That's 100 covers. That's 5 issues of story right there. If you think about it that way, 20, 22 pages of a book, that's a 5-issue series. That's a year's worth of work. So we said to ourselves, no variants. We'll sell less. That's okay. We'll get more readers. Hopefully we'll grow in the long term to be stronger because of it. And the books will be better because we'll be able to spend all that money and time building the books.
That's excellent. Again, as comic book fans, we're going to want that. We want fresh and new story. We talk about this all the time. Chris and I have been doing the show almost a year now, Chris. Crazy. But we talk about, you know, pushing the boundaries and getting new, fresh content out there. And I can speak for most comic book collectors. We're all looking for stuff like this. So again, we really are excited about this. Mastodon Comics is excited. He saw Adam Polina's on one of these titles, so that is awesome. He says.
He's on a few.
What's that?
He's on a few of our books. He is. Let me think. He is 2 complete books in, not issues, books done. We're just starting on our 3rd book now. We've been working on this for a while. COVID gave us the ability to spend an extra year building creatively. And that allowed us to also, because so many publishers are doing pencils down, allowed us to double up. We got increased production, bring in some creators we were excited about that we couldn't bring in earlier because they were on other books. Blena's killing.
I mean, I think you said a blessing in disguise in a way. So that's good stuff. B. Schnurr, our good friend B. Schnurr. Did we touch on how to find a store near you? We have not, but watch this. Boom. Magic of the internet, badideacorp.com. Is that correct?
You can go to badideacorp.com. There's a little bar on the top left that says stores, or I think retails. I can't remember which one it says. And it's got every store, their phone number. You can get in touch that way. You can also go to whereisbadidea.com. And that's a format for you to go and see every store. You can even pick books that we're publishing. And you can send us an email through that, just filling out the form. And it'll say, I want these books at this store. We'll take information. We'll send it to the store so they can reach out to you as well.
All right, we got 2 more. You guys are crushing with the questions. Well, Dinesh is here to co-host the show as well. We're going to get to those regular segments we do every week. I'm loving this, though. Very important question, Dinesh. Texas or Carolina? I
was just told about this.
But I'll let you answer first.
First of all, Kansas City barbecue.
Oh, okay.
I love that
saucy one, right? That's a drier barbecue.
No, I think that's the saucy one. Isn't that the saucy one? That's the one where you need the sauce.
You are right. Carolina's the drier one. Carolina's the drier one.
So I go Kansas, Texas, Carolina. But I mean, you can't go wrong. You just can't go wrong.
You're right about that. I'm going to go Texas first, but I'm going to throw that.
There's someone that works at Bad Idea that will kill me for not going Texas first. Kill me.
I mean, you've probably been to South by, right? And going to Stubbs and all that.
Yeah.
Stubbs is you got to go there. Now, Connecticut
and I'm a pescatarian, so I'm not even really meant to be eating this stuff, but I will happily cheat.
I mean, you're in a town like that. You're like, I got it.
Got to do it.
So, will bulk shipments of books to retailers be shipped in a way that minimizes damage? Every collector wants to know this.
A very important question. Two things we're doing to minimize damages. We are overpaying in terms of how the books are shipped. So double box, they're very, very sturdily packed, but we're probably not going to see any damages and not even need that, because the beautiful thing about spending ungodly amounts of money and spending ungodly amounts of time on your 12-point double laminate, double matte, UV spot gloss covers is these things are practically bulletproof. And so we're going to see dramatically reduced damages. When at Valiant, what we did is we had this problem at Valiant. The 1 in 50s, the high-end variants would get damaged. And that was a real problem. We could easily replace them, but it killed the time. That week that it took killed the interest. We changed the covers. We did 10-point cardstock. No, sorry, we did 110-pound first, which is 2 steps down from what we're doing at Bad Idea. Then we did 10-point, which is 1 step down from Bad Idea. When we did 110-pound, we saw 80% damages go. When we did 10-point, virtually all damages went away. I predict we will see practically no damages on the Bad Idea books unless we realize we're spending way too much money and cheap out on the paper stuff.
I'm trying to wrap my head around this because I do remember the feel of the Valiant books, and they were just excellent. And I'm super interested to see what you are going to be delivering to shops.
They're basically trade paperbacks. They're in fact,
awesome.
the Bad Idea books will be a step above that. But even the hero trade, one of the things that I think really helped the hero trade in the back issue market, I was surprised to see this, is the raw copies are selling so well because people realized the book was printed on this ridiculously sturdy cardstock cover. They were not going to get an 8.0 or a 5. They were going to get a 9 point something, probably a 9.6 or above. So they didn't have to worry too much.
That's another important stat for collectors as well. This is our last question before we move on to the next segment. Secret Agent Pollo, by the way, he says this: Franklin's barbecue is better than Stubbs, just to throw it out there as someone who lives in Austin. I agree with that too. I forgot Franklin's name though, so thank you for reminding me. But his question: Bad Idea is going to focus. Is Bad Idea going to focus on ongoing titles, miniseries, or a mixture of both?
One of the things that we're all very excited about Bad Idea, and there's always a danger of being excited to make something and always excited to actually consume it, is that this self-distribution, and the reason to do self-distribution is it allows us to do things we can't do otherwise, which is not just ongoing minis. So for instance, Adam Polina's first book for us, a book called Whalesville, I don't even know what you would call that. It's a one-shot, it's an OGN, it's an oversized, it's some kind of new format. We're going to do anthologies, we're going to do a ton of backups, we're doing a book, if for any toy collectors, when you get like a line of toys and each toy comes with like an arm, a leg, a head, and you build another toy, we're doing a book like that, like the thing that you got to build. Well, we're just doing a bunch of crazy shit.
That sounds awesome.
All of the above.
That's freaking great. Again, super excited to see what you have going on. And I just want to let you know, as we wrap this segment up, this interview, Dinesh definitely gained some new fans tonight, myself included, from Sean Miller.
Thanks, Sean.
Good to hear there. And before we move on from this interview, why don't we just share some artwork here? This is Tankers #1.
Luis LaRosa. And
is that's the cover?
That's Tankers 1, yeah.
Excellent, because there was another Tankers. We had this right here. I was confused as to what the cover would be.
Juan Jose Rip, that was a promotional piece that we built.
And yeah, his art is fantastic. I'm a Luis LaRosa fan. But his art, outstanding. Another one, you mentioned Whalesville. This has a very interesting look to it. And I it's almost like a children's book, but I don't want to say that. I want to, because I have a daughter. I'd be psyched to get something like this for her.
How old is she?
She's 5.
5? Warren has a 5-year-old. I have a 2.5-year-old. So in some ways, it's building books for our kids. Hunter has kids as well. Adam has kids. But the impetus for something like Whalesville, and we're going to do a few like that. We have several coming. We haven't announced. Is we're going to do a whole kind of corner of Bad Idea that's somewhere in the Pixar Miyazaki world, which means that totally wholesome and optimistic and hopeful for kids, but not speaking down to adults.
Right.
And so I've read Whalesville to my daughter, and she loves it. And she loves it a lot, but not as much as me, man.
The interiors that the images you've released, outstanding. But we're not done here with this first wave, I guess you would call, of Bad Idea. You have the lot, which is what do you? I don't even know what to. I mean, that looks just crazy noir goodness, right? Am I right? I mean,
so here's the premise real quick of the lot, because I'm really excited about this one. The idea is that in the 60s, you had like a Stanley Kubrick-esque auteur director who was obsessed with authenticity, and he was making a horror film. And he decided, and there was a scene with a cult ritual, and he brought in a real cult to do a real ritual, not believing it. And of course, they conjured something, blood and mayhem. Studio covered it up, shut down the stage, the lot, buried it away. It's been warehoused for decades. Now there's a new CEO. This is this woman on the cover, and she's like, "Why are we paying all this money for this prime real estate in the middle of LA? I'm going to open this up and shoot there again." And of course, she's unwittingly releasing this thing. It's basically a haunted house story. Takes place in the movie lot. And Marguerite Bennett is the writer, and she crushed it on this. She's a horror aficionado like you would not believe, and she's built something completely new in the genre.
You're covering all genres here, and it's this last one I want to share got major props in the comments. I cannot find the comment, but we're talking sleigh bells with Santa Claus and machine guns, and it looks just out there in a good way. That's
so
super
sleigh bells is I'll make a confession about sleigh bells. I don't want to publish sleigh bells. I tried to kill this book 6 ways from Sunday. This is Warren Simon's baby, the co-CEO, co-CCO. David LaFuente was doing the art. He's a genius. Zeb Well wrote it. It's funny as hell. But this book comes out in July. Is a Christmas story in which Santa Claus, a hunter and his son accidentally kill one of Santa Claus's reindeer, which takes the whole sleigh down. All the reindeers are dead. Santa's really badly injured, and so he tracks them down into town on a Christmas night and just use Uzis, SWAT teams. This is basically Rambo, the Rambo story played by Santa Claus. It is insane.
All right, I'm in, but I'm not reading it to my daughter. Please don't take offense. Okay. Thank you so much for that wonderful interview about Bad Idea Corp. We were all very excited.
Thanks, man. That was a blast.